The morning sun peeked through the curtains as Lisa Wong stirred her coffee slowly, watching the steam rise in lazy swirls. Outside the kitchen window of her modest suburban home, birds chirped in the maple tree she had planted when they'd first moved in. This was her favorite time of day, quiet, peaceful, before the world demanded her attention. No one passing by would ever guess that this woman in her worn jeans and faded sweater was married to one of the richest men in the country. Her wedding ring was the only hint of luxury she allowed herself in public, a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the light as she raised her cup to her lips. "More coffee?" asked Michael, her husband of 15 years, looking up from his tablet where he was checking the morning's stock reports. His tech company had just broken another record, but here in their kitchen, he was just a man in sweatpants making breakfast with his wife. "No thanks," Lisa replied, setting down her mug. "I think today's the day I need to say goodbye to old Betsy." Michael laughed. "You named your car Betsy? After all these years, I'm still learning things about you." "She's been loyal for 10 years. Naming her was the least I could do," Lisa said with a smile. "But that weird noise from the engine is getting worse, and the mechanic said repairs would cost more than she's worth." "Want me to come with you to look at cars?" Michael offered, pushing his dark-rimmed glasses up his nose. Despite being worth billions, he still wore the same style he'd had since college. Lisa shook her head. "I know you have that big meeting with investors. I can handle it. Nothing fancy, just something reliable." Michael nodded, respecting her independence as always. Their agreement from the beginning had been to live simply in public. It wasn't about hiding their wealth, but about staying grounded. The massive house in the hills, the vacation properties, the yacht, those were private indulgences. In daily life, they preferred normalcy. "Just promise me you'll consider something with decent safety features this time," he said, kissing her cheek as he stood to rinse his plate. "I will." Lisa smiled, remembering how Michael had tried for years to convince her to upgrade from Betsy, but she'd stubbornly refused. She had never been one for showing off, even before meeting him. Growing up with parents who worked multiple jobs to make ends meet had taught her the value of stretching a dollar and the emptiness of status symbols. After breakfast, Lisa drove Betsy one last time, wincing at the grinding sound from the engine. She pulled into Luxury Motors just as the dealership opened. She'd done her research and knew exactly what she wanted, something practical but with the safety features Michael was concerned about. The showroom gleamed with polished cars under bright lights. Lisa wandered between vehicles, reading the information cards. She noticed how the salespeople glanced at her, then quickly looked away, focusing on their phones or paperwork instead. One young woman in a crisp suit actually stepped back when Lisa approached, pretending to be busy with something else. Lisa sighed internally but wasn't surprised. Her jeans had a small tear at the knee, and her sweater had seen better days. Her plain brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore no makeup. Nothing about her screamed potential customer in a place like this. She stopped by a mid-sized sedan in a deep blue color. The price tag made her raise her eyebrows. It cost more than her parents' house had when she was growing up. But money wasn't the issue. Michael had given her a credit card years ago that had no limit, though she rarely used it. Lisa ran her hand over the car's smooth hood. It was beautiful, practical, and exactly what she needed. Something told her that today wouldn't go as planned, but she squared her shoulders and looked around for someone to help her. She spotted a salesman watching her with narrowed eyes from across the showroom, and she raised her hand to get his attention. Little did the staff of Luxury Motors know that their judgment of this simple-looking woman would soon turn their world upside down. Lisa stood beside the blue sedan for nearly 10 minutes, her hand raised occasionally when a salesperson walked by. Somehow, none of them seemed to notice her. They bustled past with clipboards, chatting with each other or tapping on their phones, but their eyes slid over her as if she were invisible. Finally, a tall man with slicked back hair approached. He wore an expensive suit with a name tag that read Thomas. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he looked her up and down. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone suggesting he doubted he could. Lisa smiled warmly. "Yes, I'm interested in this model. Could you tell me more about its safety features?" Thomas glanced at the car, then back at Lisa, taking in her worn sneakers and the small coffee stain on her sleeve that she hadn't noticed earlier. This particular vehicle starts at $90,000, he said slowly, as if explaining to a child. The monthly payments would be substantial. That's fine, Lisa replied. I'd like to test drive it, please. Thomas let out a short laugh, then caught himself. Ma'am, perhaps I could show you something more suitable? We have some pre-owned vehicles that might better fit your budget. Lisa felt her cheeks grow warm. She'd faced this kind of judgment before, but it never got easier. I'm interested in this car, she said firmly. I can afford it. Thomas's smile tightened. I apologize, but we require proof of financing before test drives on our luxury models. Company policy. Lisa knew this was a lie. 2 days ago, she'd called to ask about their test drive policy, and the friendly receptionist had told her they only required a valid driver's license. That's not what your website says, she pointed out, or what I was told on the phone. Thomas's expression hardened. I'll need to speak with my manager. He walked away, whispering to a short, balding man in an even more expensive suit. They both looked over at her, not bothering to hide their disdain. The manager nodded and headed toward Lisa with a practiced smile. Good morning, ma'am. I'm Peter Wilson, the sales manager. I understand there's some confusion about our test drive policy. Lisa met his gaze. There's no confusion. I'd like to test drive this car. Peter cleared his throat. I'm afraid that won't be possible today. Our high-end vehicles require an appointment and a credit check beforehand. Security purposes, you understand. By now, 3 other salespeople had gathered nearby, pretending to organize brochures while watching the situation unfold. One woman whispered something, and the others snickered. Lisa felt a knot form in her stomach. She reached into her purse. I have cash. I can leave a deposit. Peter's smile became strained. That won't be necessary. Thomas can show you our more affordable options. I don't want to see other options, Lisa insisted, her voice rising slightly. I've done my research. This is the car I want. A young couple entered the showroom, dressed in designer clothes. Immediately, 2 salespeople rushed to greet them, offering coffee and pastries from a tray Lisa hadn't even seen. Peter leaned closer to Lisa. Look, he said quietly, let's not make a scene. This isn't the place for you. Why don't you try the dealership on Oak Street? They have cars more in your range. Lisa felt as if she'd been slapped. Excuse me. Ma'am, we have other customers to attend to, Peter said loudly, gesturing toward the door. If you're not seriously looking to buy, I'll have to ask you to leave. The showroom had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now, the salespeople, the young couple, even the receptionist. Lisa stood frozen, humiliation washing over her in waves. You're asking me to leave? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm afraid so, Peter replied, placing a firm hand on her elbow. We can't have people wasting our time. Lisa pulled her arm away. She wanted to tell them who she was, who her husband was. She wanted to see their faces when they realized their mistake. But that wasn't who she was. That wasn't the agreement she and Michael had. With as much dignity as she could muster, Lisa walked toward the exit. She heard someone say, "About time," followed by muffled laughter. Outside, the bright sunshine felt like a mockery of her dark mood. Lisa sat in Betsy, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. In 15 years of marriage to one of the richest men in the country, she had never been treated with such blatant disrespect. As she started the car, its familiar rumbles somehow comforting, Lisa made a decision. For once, she would tell Michael everything. And for once, she wouldn't stop him from being exactly who he was, a man who never, ever tolerated anyone mistreating the people he loved. The drive home was a blur for Lisa. Old Betsy's engine complained loudly as she navigated the afternoon traffic, but the noise barely registered. All she could hear were the snickers from the salespeople, the manager's dismissive tone, the awful feeling of being judged and found wanting. By the time she pulled into their driveway, her hands had stopped shaking, but a heavy weight had settled in her chest. Their house, modest from the outside but secretly filled with every luxury, had always been her safe haven. Today, it felt like the only place she belonged. Lisa walked through the front door and kicked off her shoes. She hadn't expected Michael to be home yet. His meetings usually ran late, but she heard his voice coming from his home office. He was on a video call, probably with investors. She headed to the kitchen instead, filling the kettle for tea. The familiar ritual calmed her. As she waited for the water to boil, she leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. Maybe she should just forget the whole thing. Buy another sensible used car. Avoid places like Luxury Motors altogether. But the memory of those smirking faces made her stomach twist. It wasn't about the car anymore. It was about being treated like she was nothing, nobody. Hey, you're home early. Lisa opened her eyes to see Michael standing in the doorway, his tie loosened and a concerned look on his face. "Are you okay?" he asked, coming closer. "You look upset." The kettle whistled, saving her from answering immediately. She poured the hot water over a tea bag, watching the color spread. "I thought you had meetings all afternoon," she said. "I did. I rescheduled the last one." Michael leaned against the counter beside her. "What happened? Did you find a car?" Lisa cupped her hands around the warm mug. "I tried." Something in her voice made Michael turn to face her fully. "What does that mean?" The whole story spilled out then, how they'd ignored her, laughed at her, humiliated her, and finally kicked her out. As she spoke, she saw something change in Michael's expression. The kind, gentle man who rarely raised his voice grew very still, his eyes darkening. "They did what?" he asked quietly when she finished. "They kicked me out, said I was wasting their time." Lisa sipped her tea, which had grown cold. "It was awful, Michael. I've never felt so small." Michael took off his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose, a gesture she knew meant he was controlling his anger. "Which dealership was this?" "Luxury Motors on Riverside Drive." Michael nodded once, then put his glasses back on. "I see." There was something in the way he said those two words that made Lisa look up sharply. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," he said carefully, "that Luxury Motors is owned by the Wilson Automotive Group." "Okay. And I'm thinking that the Wilson Automotive Group has been struggling lately. Their stock is down 20% from last year." Lisa set her mug down. "Michael, I'm also thinking," he continued, his voice still unnaturally calm, "that my company was planning to finalize a deal with them next week. A rather large investment that would have saved them from their financial troubles." Lisa's eyes widened. Michael rarely talked about his business deals with her, not because he wanted to keep secrets, but because she'd never shown much interest in the corporate world. "Were you going to buy them?" she asked. "Not exactly. More like a partnership. They need capital. We need a reliable automotive partner for our self-driving technology." He took out his phone and began typing. "But I'm reconsidering that arrangement now." "Michael, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." He looked up from his phone, and the intensity in his eyes stopped her protest. "This isn't just about you, although that would be reason enough. Companies with toxic cultures don't make good partners. If this is how they treat potential customers, how do they treat their employees? Their vendors? It speaks to a fundamental problem." He returned to typing on his phone, then made a call. "David, it's Michael. Cancel tomorrow's meeting with Wilson Automotive." "Yes, all of them." He paused, listening. "No, we're not rescheduling. I've decided to go in a different direction." Another pause. "I'll explain everything tomorrow. Also, I need you to clear my schedule for the afternoon. I'll be making a visit to Luxury Motors on Riverside Drive. And David, bring the paperwork for a cash purchase. I might be buying a car." He ended the call and turned to Lisa with a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What are you going to do?" she asked, both curious and a little worried. Michael took her hand. "I'm going to teach them a lesson about judging people by their appearance, and I'm going to do it without ever raising my voice." The next morning at Luxury Motors began like any other. Thomas arrived early, straightening his tie in his car mirror before heading inside. Sales had been slow all month, and the pressure from upper management was building. Everyone felt it. "Morning," called the receptionist as he walked in. "Coffee's fresh." Thomas grabbed a cup, noticing Peter already in his office with the door closed. Through the glass walls, he could see his boss on the phone, looking more animated than usual. "What's got him so excited?" Thomas asked, nodding toward the office. The receptionist leaned forward. "You didn't hear. Some big-shot investor is coming today. Might buy the whole dealership." Thomas nearly spilled his coffee. "The whole place? You're kidding." "Nope. Peter got a call last night from the owner himself. Apparently, this investor is loaded, tech billionaire or something. Peter's been on the phone all morning. Just then, Peter emerged from his office, clapping his hands to gather everyone's attention. "Listen up, people," he announced. "We have a very special visitor coming today. Mr. Michael Wong, CEO of Horizon Technologies, is considering acquiring our dealership. This could be the answer to all our problems." A murmur of excitement ran through the staff. Horizon Technologies was one of the biggest success stories in the country, from startup to billion-dollar company in under a decade. "He'll be here at 2 o'clock, Peter continued. "I want this place spotless. Every car polished, every surface dusted. Thomas, you'll be our lead salesperson for this meeting." Thomas straightened up, pride swelling in his chest. "Me? Yes. You're our top seller when you actually try," Peter said pointedly. "And for God's sake, be respectful. This man could literally buy and sell all of us without blinking." The morning passed in a flurry of activity. Cleaners were called in, cars were rearranged, and a catering company delivered an impressive spread of food and drinks. By 1:30, the showroom gleamed like never before, and every staff member was dressed impeccably. "Remember," Peter said as they gathered for a final pep talk, "this isn't just about selling a car. It's about selling our dealership. Our jobs depend on making a good impression." At exactly 2 o'clock, 3 black SUVs with tinted windows pulled into the parking lot. The staff watched nervously through the windows as several people in suits emerged from the first and third vehicles. "Those must be his lawyers and assistants," whispered the receptionist. From the middle SUV stepped a man in his 40s wearing an expensive but understated suit. His dark-rimmed glasses and confident stride immediately commanded attention. "That's him," Peter breathed. "Michael Wong himself." Peter rushed to open the door while the rest of the staff lined up, ready to greet their important visitor. But as they watched, another person stepped out of the middle SUV. A woman in an elegant cream-colored dress, her hair styled perfectly, designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. Thomas felt a strange flicker of recognition as the woman removed her sunglasses, something about her face. The blood drained from his face as realization dawned. It was her. The woman he'd dismissed yesterday. The one they'd laughed at and kicked out. Only now she looked completely different in her expensive clothes and professional appearance. Peter had already reached the door, extending his hand to Michael Wong with a broad smile. "Mr. Wong, welcome to Luxury Motors. We're honored to have you here today." Michael shook his hand briefly. "Thank you. I believe you've already met my wife, Lisa." Peter's smile faltered as he turned to the woman. The color drained from his face as recognition hit him too. Mrs. Wong. What a pleasant surprise." Lisa smiled politely but said nothing. Her eyes scanned the showroom until they landed on Thomas, who was trying desperately to blend into the background. "Shall we go to your office?" Michael suggested to Peter. "I think we have a lot to discuss about how your business is run." Peter nodded weakly, looking like a man walking to his own execution. "Of course. Right this way." As the couple passed by the line of staff, Lisa paused in front of Thomas. "Hello again," she said softly. "Funny how things work out, isn't it?" Thomas couldn't speak. He simply nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he watched the couple follow Peter into his office. Through the glass walls, everyone could see Peter offering them seats, his hands visibly shaking. The receptionist leaned toward Thomas. "Do you know her?" Thomas loosened his tie, suddenly finding it hard to breathe. "That's the woman I kicked out yesterday. The one I said couldn't afford our cars." A collective gasp went through the staff as they all realized what was happening. This wasn't just a business meeting anymore. It was a reckoning. Inside Peter's glass-walled office, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Peter fumbled with the coffee machine in the corner, his hands shaking so badly that water sloshed over the edges of the cups. "Please have a seat," he said, his voice an octave higher than normal. "Can I offer you some coffee? Or perhaps something stronger? I have a bottle of whiskey in my desk for special occasions." "Just water is fine," Michael said, his voice calm and measured as he held a chair out for Lisa before taking his own seat. Lisa sat with perfect posture, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore no expression at all, which somehow made her presence even more intimidating. The simple woman in worn jeans from yesterday had vanished, replaced by someone who exuded quiet confidence. "So," Peter said, setting down 2 glasses of water with trembling hands. "You're interested in acquiring our dealership. We're very flattered, of course. Our sales have been quite impressive this quarter, despite the economic downturn." Michael didn't touch his water. "Actually, Mr. Wilson, I was interested in your dealership." Past tense. Peter's smile froze. I don't understand." "Let me clarify," Michael said, leaning forward slightly. "Yesterday, my wife came here to purchase a car. She was ignored, mocked, and ultimately asked to leave because she wasn't dressed like someone who could afford your vehicles." He gestured toward Lisa. "Would you like to tell him what happened, dear, or should I continue?" All the blood drained from Peter's face as he looked at Lisa, truly seeing her for the first time. "Mrs. Wong, there must be some misunderstanding. We would never." "There's no misunderstanding," Lisa cut in, her voice soft but firm. "You told me I was wasting your time. You suggested I go to the used car lot down the street. Your salesman Thomas laughed when I asked to test drive a car. Everyone in the showroom watched as you escorted me out." Peter's forehead beaded with sweat. "I had no idea, if I had known who you were." "And that's exactly the problem," Michael interrupted. "If you had known she was my wife, you would have treated her differently. But you shouldn't need to know someone's bank account balance to treat them with basic human dignity." Outside the glass walls, the entire staff had given up any pretense of working. They stood in small clusters, watching the scene unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Thomas had loosened his tie completely and looked like he might be sick. "Mr. Wong," Peter pleaded, "I cannot apologize enough for this terrible misunderstanding. I assure you, this is not how we typically conduct business. If you'll give us another chance." Michael held up his hand. "I was prepared to invest $30 million in your parent company, Wilson Automotive Group. The paperwork was ready to be signed this morning." Peter's eyes widened. "$30 million? Yes, but after hearing how my wife was treated, I made some calls." Michael took out his phone and pulled up an email. "This morning, instead of investing in your company, I purchased a controlling interest in your biggest competitor, Elite Motors." The room fell completely silent. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to pause. "You? What?" Peter whispered. "I now own 60% of Elite Motors," Michael said, pocketing his phone. "And my first act as majority shareholder was to request a complete audit of all their competitors' business practices, starting with Luxury Motors." Lisa watched Peter's face crumble as the implications sank in. She felt no joy in his distress, only a calm sense that justice was being served. "The audit team will arrive tomorrow," Michael continued. "They'll review everything: your sales practices, customer complaints, employment records, financial statements. Everything." Peter slumped in his chair. "You're going to destroy us." "No," Michael corrected him. "You did that yourself when you decided some customers deserve respect and others don't." He stood up and buttoned his jacket. Lisa rose gracefully beside him. "One more thing," Michael said, reaching into his inner pocket and removing a small envelope. He placed it on Peter's desk. "Before I leave, I'd like to purchase a car. The blue sedan my wife was interested in yesterday. I believe the price was $90,000? He smiled thinly. "I'll pay cash, of course. I wouldn't want to waste your time with financing paperwork." Outside in the showroom, the staff watched in stunned silence as Peter, looking like a broken man, led the couple to the blue sedan Lisa had admired the day before. The message was crystal clear to everyone watching. Appearances can be deceiving and kindness costs nothing, but the lack of it might cost everything. Word spread through Luxury Motors like wildfire. By closing time, every employee knew what had happened. Thomas cleaned out his desk without being told to, knowing his job was already gone. The receptionist updated her resume during her lunch break. Even the janitor whispered into his phone about the disaster unfolding at the dealership. Peter locked himself in his office after the Wongs left with their new car. Through the glass walls, staff could see him making frantic calls, his face growing redder with each conversation. Twice they heard him shouting. Once they watched him put his head in his hands and just sit there, motionless, for nearly 10 minutes. At 5 o'clock, he emerged, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. Staff meeting. Now, he announced, his voice hoarse. They gathered in the break room, a somber group waiting for the axe to fall. Some avoided eye contact, others whispered nervously. The room went silent when Peter walked in. "I just got off the phone with Mr. Wilson," Peter said, referring to the dealership's owner. "As you may have guessed, we're in serious trouble." Nobody spoke. A ceiling fan clicked rhythmically overhead. "Tomorrow morning, auditors will arrive. They'll review everything. Our sales records, customer complaints, security footage, everything." Peter loosened his tie. "Mr. Wilson is flying in tonight. Peter paused, not happy. "Are we all getting fired?" asked a young salesman who had only been there 3 months. Peter sighed heavily. "I don't know. I'm being replaced, effective immediately. That much is certain." Murmurs rippled through the group. "The rest of you, that's for Mr. Wilson to decide. But I prepare for the worst." Thomas stood up from the back of the room. "This is crazy. All this because some woman got her feelings hurt. How are we supposed to know she was married to Michael Wong?" An older saleswoman named Reba turned to him, eyes flashing. "That's exactly the point, isn't it? We shouldn't treat people differently based on who they know or how much money they have." "Oh, come on," Thomas scoffed. "Like you've never sized up a customer by their clothes or car." Rita shook her head. "I've been selling cars for 22 years. The guy who bought the most expensive car I ever sold came in wearing overalls with paint stains. He owned a construction company." She looked around the room. "We deserved this. All of us. We created a culture where treating people badly was okay as long as they didn't look rich." The room fell quiet as her words sank in. After the meeting, the staff filed out silently. Peter remained behind, staring at the coffee machine as if it might offer some solution to his problems. Across town, in their modest home, Lisa and Michael sat in their kitchen, the keys to her new car on the table between them. "Do you think we went too far?" Lisa asked, running her finger along the smooth key fob. Michael considered this as he stirred honey into his tea. "I don't think so." "This wasn't about revenge." "Wasn't it?" Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Not entirely." Michael smiled slightly. "The deal with Elite Motors makes business sense. They have better management and customer satisfaction ratings." As for the audit, he shrugged. "Every company should be able to withstand scrutiny. If they've done nothing wrong, they have nothing to fear." Lisa nodded slowly. "And Thomas? Peter? The others who were rude to me? That's not up to us. The owner will decide who stays and who goes." Michael reached across the table to take her hand. "But honestly, I hope they don't all lose their jobs." "Really?" "After how they treated me." "People can learn from mistakes." Michael squeezed her hand. "Remember how I was when we first met? All business, no heart. You taught me to see people, not just opportunities or obstacles." Lisa smiled at the memory. Michael had been a very different man 15 years ago, brilliant but cold, focused only on building his company. "Maybe this will be a wake-up call for them," she said, "like I was for you." "Exactly." The doorbell rang, interrupting their conversation. Michael checked his watch. "That'll be David with the paperwork from today's meeting." Lisa stood to answer the door. "I'll get it. I want to hear what happened after we left." As she walked to the front door, Lisa felt lighter than she had in days. Today hadn't been about getting revenge. It had been about standing up for something more important, the idea that every person deserved basic dignity and respect, regardless of what they wore or how they looked. And that was a lesson worth teaching, even if it came with a high price tag. 3 months passed quickly. Summer turned to fall, and the leaves on the maple tree in Lisa and Michael's front yard changed from green to brilliant orange. Life had mostly returned to normal for the couple, with one notable exception. Lisa now drove her sleek blue sedan instead of old Betsy. On a crisp October morning, Michael looked up from his tablet at breakfast. "There's something you should see," he said, sliding it across the table to Lisa. The screen showed a news article about Wilson Automotive Group. Lisa sipped her coffee as she read, her eyebrows rising. "They're completely restructuring," she said. "New management, new training programs, new customer service policies." Michael nodded. "Keep reading." Lisa scrolled down and stopped suddenly. They're using Luxury Motors as their pilot program. The same dealership that kicked me out. The very same. Michael buttered his toast. After the audit, they had two choices: shut it down or transform it. They chose transformation. Lisa read further, her expression thoughtful. It says here they've implemented a no-judgment policy. Every customer gets the same treatment regardless of appearance. She looked up at Michael. And they've hired a customer experience consultant to retrain their staff. Apparently, the owner was genuinely shocked by what happened to you. The audit revealed it wasn't an isolated incident. Lisa set down the tablet. What about Peter and Thomas? Peter's gone. But interestingly, Thomas was kept on, under strict probation. Michael tilted his head. The new manager thought he deserved a chance to learn and change. Lisa considered this. That's surprisingly forgiving. I thought you might want to see for yourself. Michael checked his watch. The grand reopening is today at noon. We could stop by if you're interested. Lisa hesitated. The memory of that humiliating day still stung. But curiosity won out. Okay, but I'm wearing my normal clothes. No fancy dress this time. Wouldn't have it any other way, Michael smiled. At noon, they pulled into the Luxury Motors parking lot in Lisa's sedan. The dealership looked different, brighter, with new signage that read, "Everyone welcome. Every budget respected." As they entered, Lisa immediately noticed changes. There was a comfortable waiting area with free coffee for everyone, not just for serious buyers. Price tags on all vehicles clearly displayed monthly payment options for various income levels. And most notably, the salespeople wore casual clothes instead of intimidating suits. A young woman approached them with a warm smile. "Welcome to Luxury Motors. I'm Amy. Can I help you find anything today, or would you prefer to just look around?" Lisa glanced at Michael, surprised by the low-pressure greeting. "Just looking for now, thanks." "No problem at all. Coffee's fresh if you'd like some, and I'll be over there if you have any questions." Annie gestured to a desk and walked away, giving them space. As they wandered through the showroom, Lisa noticed Thomas helping an elderly couple. He was patiently explaining features of a modestly priced car, showing none of the dismissiveness she'd experienced. "Well, look who's learned some manners," she whispered to Michael. Just then, a tall man in a casual button-down shirt approached them. "Mr. and Mrs. Wong, I'm Robert Wilson, the owner of Wilson Automotive Group. I was hoping you might visit today." Michael shook his hand. "Mr. Wilson, I'm surprised to see you here personally. After what happened, I wanted to be hands-on with the changes." Robert turned to Lisa. "Mrs. Wong, I can't apologize enough for how you were treated. It was inexcusable." Lisa nodded, appreciating his directness. "I'm curious about the changes you've made. I'd be happy to show you. But first," Robert gestured across the showroom, where Thomas was now looking in their direction, recognition dawning on his face. "He's asked to speak with you, if you're willing. Part of his rehabilitation was writing apology letters to customers he mistreated. Yours was the longest." Lisa hesitated, then nodded. "I'll talk to him." As Thomas walked over, his face showed genuine remorse. The smoke salesman was gone, replaced by someone who looked humbled. "Mrs. Wong," he began, his voice slightly shaky. "I've been hoping for a chance to apologize to you personally. What I did was wrong, and I've spent these months learning just how wrong it was." Lisa studied his face, looking for sincerity and finding it. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she said finally. "Just remember how it feels to be judged unfairly." Thomas nodded gratefully. "I won't forget. Thank you." As they left the dealership later, Lisa felt a sense of closure. What had begun as a humiliating experience had transformed an entire business and perhaps changed a few hearts along the way. "You know," she said to Michael as they drove home, "I think we did the right thing after all." Michael reached for her hand. "That's why I fell in love with you. You always see the best in people, even when they don't deserve it." Lisa smiled, squeezing his hand. Sometimes people just need a chance to be better than they were yesterday.